Here we go. Let's do it. Hey, everybody, this is Jeremiah Craig coming at you for another edition of Ask the Bootmaker. Today, we got a special one for you. I am joined by bootmaker John Allen Woodward in Boulder, Colorado. How's it going, John? Thanks for joining today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm honored because I've seen some of the bootmakers you've had on here, and I really admire them, and I know a lot of them, and so I appreciate you having me on. And whoever's listening, I'm glad you're here. Hope you asked a lot of questions. I'm good to go.
Awesome. Yes. Thanks for bringing that up, John. If anybody has any questions during this live stream, be sure to put them in the live chat, and I'll do my best to ask them of John. I also have my own questions here that I've put together after talking with him on the phone about a week or so ago. So I think we should just jump right into it and get it going like right at the beginning. I remember you telling me on the phone that you started out sort of as a musician and you went to Nashville. You sort of a big deal, publishing deal, and trying to make it in Nashville. Can you tell me about that process and how you got into bootmaking while you were there?
Yeah, I had a songwriting deal in 1990 and went to Nashville. I was living in San Diego at the time, and I was there 2 years. About the second year in, I was pretty disenchanted with the music business. I love the creating part of it, but I don't really love entertaining. And you really have to if you're going to be successful. So, but I was playing one night at Douglas Corner, and there was a couple in the audience that I met afterwards because he had this really cool pair of boots on. His name was Bo Riddle. I think a lot of people know who he is. He was back at that time and living in Nashville, doing a lot of the country stars. And we became friends. And a couple weeks into that, I went out to his shop one day to visit, and he had a lot of work to do, a lot of repair work to do. And he really didn't have time to talk. So I said, well, I can help you. I don't know what I can do, but so I hung out for a while and said, I love the art here. I'd love to learn how to do this. And he was right up front with me, John, I can't take time to teach you, but you can look over my shoulder and I'll answer any questions and help you make a pair of boots at some time. And, but I need you to learn how to do repair because I've got this piling up, and that'll help you be a bootmaker. So I did his repair for probably 6 months or so, and started working on a pair of boots and finished those boots. And then I went back to San Diego and opened up a little shop. Really didn't know what I was doing at the time, but that's how I got into it. And Bo, I really appreciate what you helping me and showing me what you knew. And really, I wouldn't be here if he wouldn't have taken me under his wing. So, Bo, thanks.
That is so cool. I love it. And how long was it before you decided that you were going to go all in on boot repair and bootmaking from music?
About 2 weeks.
That fast? You just switched it and you're like, screw this music stuff. Not a fan of being up in front of rowdy, drunk crowds. I want to make some boots.
Well, what I loved about music was the creation part. And what I saw about the art of bootmaking was the creation and the art of it. And it was easy to transition for me. I immediately threw everything into it. I loaded up my car with an old sewing machine in Nashville and a little bit of leather, one pair of lasts. Drove back to San Diego with about $150 in my pocket. moved in with my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, Angie. I certainly wouldn't had any of the success without my wife, Angie. And we lived in a little bitty apartment, and I started making boots in that apartment. And I finally found a little shoe repair place in an area I would like to set up shop. And nobody in the repair business really wants to be there, I don't think. So I just made an offer on his business, and he said, yeah, I'll take it. And I said, problem is I don't have any money, but I'm willing to make payments. Are you willing to take it? And he just about immediately took off his apron and handed it to me and said, all yours. And so, no, I was all in. I didn't have any other source of income. And I had to be profitable like immediately, which is hard to do when you don't really know what you're doing. It takes quite a while and some help to learn how to fit people and all the 200 or 300 steps in bootmaking. And at the time, there was no internet. It was 1992. There was not a lot of learning material. Fortunately, D.W. Frommer had a book out at the time. Thank you, D.W. Wouldn't be here today without you. Appreciate you. And I had that book, on my bench, and I learned what I could from there. And but one thing I've always done is I'm going to make the customer happy. And if I have to make it 3 or 4 times, I always figured, well, they're paying me to learn how to make boots. That's the way I've always looked at any new project. Somebody's paying me to learn how, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll do it again. And I did lots of boots over.
Wow. Wow. I can imagine that would be a learning curve that is tough to master, even still mastering it today. I want to go back though to your first shop, your shoe repair shop. When you purchased that and started making payments, did the customers just show up as the previous customers of the previous owner, or did you do something in order to get more people in because you were sort of low on cash? You needed to make as much money as possible during that time.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about marketing or business, and I didn't have any money to do marketing, even if I did. But the attractive part about buying that shop is I knew a little bit about repair, and there was a lot of repair on the wall when I moved in. So I had quite a bit of work to do. And it was my major source of income at the time. I remember I was probably doing $3,000 or $4,000 a month in repair at the time. And my payment with my rent was probably $1,500 a month. So I was getting by, but I was learning. And but about a year into it, I had quite a few boot orders, and I had to make a decision. I can't keep doing repair and boots. So I had a particularly nasty customer come in one day. The thing about repair is, people aren't happy when they come in. I'm happy. The $100 pair of shoes that is going to cost $100 to repair, there's always, and I got to where I hated to see somebody carrying something in, because I know there's going to be this confrontation. I don't like confrontation. So one day I walked out and I just tore the sign off the door, and that was it. And what I learned from that is sometimes you have to stop doing something that's good for something really great. Otherwise, you don't have the time or the effort or the focus. So, if you can do repair, it's a great business. And I admire people that do. It wasn't for me.
So you were getting custom boot orders while you were doing the repair, which led you to be in a good spot to take that repair sign down and say, screw it, only custom boots from here on out.
Well, the one thing I did do, getting back to marketing, I didn't have any money. But what I did have was this big beauty salon across the mall from me. And I went in to get my hair cut one day, and I just announced, anybody want $1,000 pair of custom boots for, I think I said $400 or something like that. And like 4 girls raised their hand, and I was in the boot business. So, and then, I was 4 or 6 boots behind, and I would raise my price. And I've pretty much done that for 30 years now. When I get to a certain level, I raise my price again. Does 2 things. You make more money, obviously, but it makes you want to be better because now you're charging more. And I've always wanted to like over deliver. So pretty soon I had a lot of work, and I wasn't charging enough at a time, but I wasn't that good either. And by the time I did a lot of them twice, it wasn't lucrative at the time. Well, I'll put it like that. But I loved it. I never minded getting up early and staying late. Still don't. I feel it. The only part that bothers me is I don't get to start over again. It's been 30 years, great challenge, fun, met a lot of great people. You guys and girls that are just starting, I'm kind of envious.
That actually goes into a question that I have in the live chat from Neil McLaren over in Scotland. He asks, what would you do differently if you had to start over again?
I should be prepared for this, but a lot of things go in my mind. It's Neil?
Neil, yes.
Thanks, Neil, for the question. And it's a good one. I don't know. I couldn't have put more hours in. I think what I would have done earlier is I would have decided what customers I'm going to work with. Everybody's not your customer. Some people are, I don't know, you just don't like them when they walk in your store, and you know it. And they want to negotiate price. And at the time, I needed every dollar. So I kind of took that for quite a few years, 4 or 5 years probably. Again, they were teaching me, they were paying me to learn. So that's the way I looked at it. But I think I would have made that choice earlier, that this is the customer I'm going to deal with, who appreciates the art of the boot, who's excited about what I'm doing, has confidence in me, and I'm excited to do the work. I wish I would have been had more discretion in my customers early on.
That's part of the learning process, though. I mean, that's where I am. When you say that you have to do, or you used to have to do boots twice in order to get it right, part of my learning process is the exact same thing when it comes to whether it's music or making content here. Like, I'm just trying to produce as much as possible. And when I do that, I notice the mistakes that I make because I make a lot more because I'm trying to do it faster. So when I then try it again, I'm going back and I remember what I did differently and then learn that way. It seems like you had a similar process, except you weren't able to just move on from a bad pair. You had to fix it.
Yeah. I had to, and we all have to be successful. You have to embrace failure. That's kind of a catch term that I've heard, but it's really true. Mm-hmm. My phrase is, no matter what kind of challenge, boots, business, whatever, I always ask myself, what's good about this? And, the first response is, nothing. But if you make yourself keep asking, you'll start seeing some things, and it changes your whole focus on what you're doing. Now you're focused on, well, yeah, that particular thing I'm going to do much better at. I could do better at this, and you do. And it changes your whole attitude. Pretty soon you're out of the funk, and you're progressing. It takes practice, though. There's a reason why a lawyer and a doctor, their business is called a practice. They're smart guys, right? We don't love them all, but they are smart, and they're still practicing. They recognize that it's the world's too complex. Business, customers, the law, boots. It's so complex. You have to just practice and get better. That's it.
That's a great way to look at it. Plus, these industries are always changing. Laws change every year. Medical technology changes every year. So they have to keep learning and keep practicing every single day.
Yeah.
Incredible. That's a great analogy to make. So you have, getting back to the history here, you had your repair place for about a year until you decided to go all in on custom, and you started marketing to the folks across the way in the mall. What happened next? How long did it take for you to get out to where you are today, and what was that process like?
So I'm in this little shop for a couple of years, and a customer who I really admired, his family had a great business. I think it was jewelry business. And he would come in all the time, and we would just talk about business. He said, John, people don't appreciate, or not enough people are going to appreciate the art of what you do where you're at. I was in San Diego at the time in the East County. And he says, you need to go to La Jolla. Well, La Jolla, California is one of the wealthiest areas in the world, the real estate. So you need to go right down to La Jolla. I said, well, there's just no way. I don't have the money. I can't afford it. And he said, well, just figure it out. So I thought about it for months, and I approached a landlord down there that had a building. It was vacant. In fact, it was a shell of a building, but it was right above the Hard Rock Cafe. So I made him an offer, which he accepted, and he agreed to build it out. No, I take that back. That was another one. He didn't agree to build it out, but I got it cheap if I built it out. And a great friend of mine, Mike Gentili, another person who I wouldn't be here without, said, let's build it out. I'll help you build it out. He was a contractor, and he brought one of his guys on the weekends and at night, and he built that shop out. And so I was in, not deservingly, but I was in like one of the most expensive areas in the world where people would really appreciate where I was. And I was so unprepared. I was a pretty good bootmaker at that time, though. And I had improved my business skills a lot. And I knew I would do what it takes, and that is get up early, stay late. I mean, I knew I would do whatever I had to do. But one funny thing that happened. So I had this old car, this old Ford Taurus, and I really needed a muffler. So I would go really early in the morning because there's Rolls Royce, Bentleys, Porsche all over the street. My landlord, my tenants next to me, the other business people, they were quite successful. That's how they got there. They had really nice cars. So I'd come in real early in the morning, and I would park so nobody would see me come in. And one day I got caught in traffic, and I had to park right in front of the Hard Rock Cafe, and until another space was open. So I got in, I was late, I ran upstairs, opened the doors, and I'm looking around, and there's people like looking out at the street. And I go, what's going on out there? What happened? An accident? So I look out, my car's on fire.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. It's on fire. So I run in, grab a fire extinguisher. I run down. I spreading the tide of people. I put out the fire. I look around. And so everybody knew at that point what I was driving, obviously.
Or used to be driving.
Yeah. So really embarrassing. But you know what? It was another thing that told me, you're not always going to be like this. You're working hard, you're doing the right thing. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And it did. It did. La Jolla was a great place for me. I was there, I think, 6 years. Moved to another place I thought was better in downtown San Diego, Little Italy. It was better. And I was there until I moved to Boulder 7 years ago, 2000.
When you were moving all of these places, did you keep your previous locations too and hire somebody, or you moved everything?
No. I've worked primarily by myself until the last 5 years or so when my son came into the business. I would occasionally have an apprentice that would work for me till they learned enough to go out on their own, which that's what you should do. So I've had a lot of those people, and a lot of them are in business now for themselves. But no, I always thought I could do better. I've always moved because of better environment, better business, better location. And that's another thing I really learned is spend the money on a great location. If the great location is $5 a foot, but you can be right around the corner for $1 a foot, well, there's a reason for it. To get the $5 a foot and figure it out. Because that's another thing I realized, that pick the best location in town that you can get. It'll pay off.
That's what they say in marketing, right? Location, location, location.
You can be a half a block off and not succeed. Because I've been there.
Wow.
I succeeded because we got on the internet like when the internet started, very early on. Early 90s, we had a website. And so as time passed, it wasn't as important where I was at because the internet was really good for us right off the bat. But I still pick the best location I can. I'm in downtown Boulder now. This is one of the most expensive retail areas in the nation, I'm sure. But it's worth it. The clientele, the type of clientele, the amount of traffic, foot traffic that comes in. And it's fun to be downtown in a great spot. So I highly recommend that.
Is this the best location that you've had in your career?
Yes. Yeah. For a couple reasons. Great clientele, great tourist, great working shop. It's a beautiful shop. We just moved out of the shop we're in right now. This is about 1,000 feet. There was a space that wasn't built out right around the corner that's 1,600 feet, but we could do more in there. So I just took that spot and we just opened that up in July. This spot, I'm turning into a school. We can talk more about that. So.
All right. Yeah. I'd love to talk more about that. We're just about at the halfway point now. And before we get into, because I want to talk school, I want to talk buckles and the other stuff that you make custom. But I wanted to take a moment also to go through some of the random questions that we've gotten so far. I pulled in Neil's because it had directly to do what you were talking about, but we've had several others while we've been chatting here. So I'm just going to go through like a quick round of just a bunch of different questions, and then we can get back at it with some other stuff. So let's start out with this question here from AD910. asks, what's your advice for new boot enthusiasts who'd love to have a pair but have no idea where to start?
I'd pick the best pair that you can get in your budget. And there's lots in every price range. To see if you're going to like a higher heel, a pointy toe, a shaft on your, 12 inches up your leg. And then I just work your way up. Find a pair on eBay. Find a pair from a bootmaker you recognize that's the right size. A lot of times somebody will buy a pair of boots in Texas or wherever on vacation and wear them one time. And so that's what I would do, and see if you like them, and then work your way up. You're probably going to pay, a couple $100 on something like that. And just seeing if you do, just buy a couple more pair, work your way up. Not everybody wants or needs custom boots. You may want to after a while, though, after wearing them. So that's what I do.
Amen to that. And one thing that I've noticed when I do the eBay or the thrift stores or the used market is that if it doesn't work out, you can still flip the boots. You can sell them on eBay. And if you know what you're looking for, you can buy them cheaper than what they're worth and sell them for what they're actually worth. Get the boots for $20 on eBay or at a thrift store at a garage sale, and then flip them for 60 to 70 on eBay. And then you are creating a fund for you to then invest in better boots down the line. That's what I do.
Absolutely.
Another question here from Gabrielle. What's the best kind of socks to wear with boots?
That's a matter of taste. I mean, most boot makers, me included, recommend like an athletic sock, especially in new boots. The thing about boots, good boots, there's lots of leather between you and the sidewalk. Thick insole that's leather, thick outsole that's leather. It's kind of stiff when you get it. Getting good perspiration going loosens that insole up, kind of helps your the inside of your insole there mold to your feet, to your foot, your toes. With that said, though, I have customers that like to wear them barefoot. So, it's really a matter of taste.
Totally. I like a thicker sock when I can, but sometimes I'm forced to do thin socks. I don't know how people do it barefoot. I really don't. Question from Carol. What's your favorite part of boot making?
I would say the design, coming up with a great design, which takes some time usually, and the customer usually will give me a pretty wide berth there on that. Talking to the customer, seeing what they like, seeing colors, coming up with a super great design and showing it to them and getting them excited. I guess all the artwork, and it's really all work, all artwork, even the sole, the heel. There's not any part that I don't like. It's a matter of steps, hundreds of steps, right? That's you try to do the best you can each step. That's really what it's all about. And you kind of learn to appreciate each step. So, but I would say the creation, the design that comes out of that is the thing about boot making to me is the magic. It's real magic. You have an idea in your head that you pull out of the air somewhere. You lay out a bunch of raw materials and you sculpt them into what you had in your head. And to me, that's real magic. So the whole process.
You appreciate it all. So you like the whole process, but is there a process where you're like, damn, not this again?
Well, I've made hundreds of pairs of boots. I don't know how many, hundreds and hundreds. Something always goes wrong. Somebody might a customer may not see it while I'm doing it, but something always goes wrong, and you have to figure out, what you did and how to fix it. Nobody likes that part. Nobody likes doing something over. You're working with, leather and just stuff happens. You look down and all of a sudden, where did that thumbprint come from? That black ink, it's like, so, I mean, doing things over, I hate. I mean, I just, that makes sense, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Not anything I really hate about it, but if I don't like something, it's because I'm not very good at it. So that process, I'm always trying, how can I be better at it? How can I do better? It's a challenge. So something might irritate me, but not for long.
Yep. I understand that. A couple more here in the lightning round of questions before we get back on track with the buckles and the school. Isaac here asks, do you see more demand now for boots or in previous years?
30 years, I've always had as many boots ordered as I can make. There's never been a time, including now, where I'm not referring other people to other boot makers. The thing about Western boots, it's American fashion. It's so unique. There's a particular person that wears them, and that person is, they go their own way. They don't really care what everybody else is wearing. They are adventuresome. I always say, some people might buy boots for how they feel on their feet, but it's really about, for most people, how they feel wearing them. I don't think outlaw is the right, but you feel unique, and you feel like, you're going to go your own way. You're going to do your own thing. And it kind of, I think, harkens back to that, that cowboy that, was out on the range and, lived a tough life and made his own rules. And it's really what Western boots are about. And I've made boots for people all over the world. That's why they buy them. Mm-hmm. It's American. It's that American adventure. It's so as long as people are like that, Western boots, people are going to want them. And there's room for everybody that wants to be a boot maker. There's no boot makers that I know that don't have as much work as they want to do. So don't let that stop you. There'll always be plenty of boot work.
Love it. Let's get into talking about new boot makers and the school that you are opening or have recently opened in Boulder, and you're actually sitting in the school right now. Can you tell us a little bit about this new venture that you're on?
Yeah, so most people that do what I do, they want to teach. They want to share what they know. And people ask them every week, do you teach? I mean, somebody walks in here every week. So there's a huge demand. The problem is most makers are working by themselves, maybe one other person, in a small shop with all their equipment. If they teach somebody, they can maybe teach one person. And, they still have work to do. They still have boots to make. And so that doesn't really help them. You really need several people at a time to make it financially sound for the teacher or the bootmaker or the shoemaker. I've always been like that too. So when this other space was available, I decided that, this is the chance where I can have a space just dedicated to a school. And so I have 7 workbenches, workbench for each student, and they're big.
Can you show us?
Yeah.
Yeah, those nice amount of space in between each work desk too.
And they're drafting chairs, so they go up and down to whatever the height is needed. Then over in this area, we have this long bench. So comfortably 7 people, and we'll be able to work in here. I also have room in the back with the finisher and other things. This space is about 1,200 feet, and it's very comfortable. It's right on Pearl. A lot of great places to go eat, play, and it's really a great space.
What's the syllabus look like? Do you have a whole master class where they go through each one of the processes, or is it more focused and specific on different things like inlay class? Is there like welt stitching? Like how do you have it organized for people?
So we just finished this. We just put a website up.
What is that website?
It is, just put it on, so I have to remember the name. It's short for a lot of things, but it's
we could just put it in description later.
I'll get it back. I'll get it back to you.
All right, sounds good.
It is live, but it really doesn't have a syllabus yet, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But first of all, COVID, we're not sure. Although this is completely COVID ready. I mean, you're more than 6 foot piece, but I'm not sure somebody wants to spend a day or 2 days with a mask on learning things. So that could change in a week also. So what I'm going to have everybody do is go to the website, put your name in the email, and we will start shooting you out information as soon as we start. Now, the classes, one of the main reasons I want to do this is a continuing education for makers at every level. I mean, there's plenty of makers that, it's not a great experience for them right now because they went to a school and, the school is an introduction to it. Then you have to practice a lot. And that's not always easy if you have another job or, but then you get into it, maybe you have a repair and you're making boots, but your boots aren't at the level to where you can really charge what you need to. And, it's 40 hours and you don't really know how they're going to turn out because there's so many steps in seaming and putting a sole on. So what I'm going to do is bring in master makers from all over the country, some from all over the world. And we're going to address some of those things that keep a maker from really being successful. For example, measuring a person, fitting the last, making patterns from it that fit. Most people are still guessing at that. And it takes some concentrated time to really get into it, ask questions, hands-on. And that's probably going to be a day or 2 class, something like that. And we'll be bringing it. I'm not going to teach all these classes. I'm going to bring in, people like Lisa Sorrell and other makers that have expressed interest to come. I'm going to fly them in. I'm going to pay for their airfare. I'm going to pay for their hotel, and I'm going to pay them well to teach. And the people that learn, they're going to pay well to learn. They're going to have to invest in themselves. But I can tell you it'll be worth it. I would have paid any amount early in my career instead of having to do boots over because they didn't fit, for example. Because I would have immediately got my money back the next pair of boots I made. So it's going to be a great place for instructors to come and bring their spouse and have a great time, have a great teaching experience. And it's going to be great for the students. So along with all those, like something like a curved needle class. I mean, people have such problems with their curved needle sewing machine that sews this sole on. That could be a great day class where somebody that's really good at it can say, this is how you tune this up, and this is how you keep it in tune. And then they're done. The rest of their career, they're not doing a boot over because of a mistake. And it'll be worth it. So we're going to have a lot of classes. I call them continuing education classes for people that are new to boot making, have gone all in like I did, or you've been in the business 20 or 30 years. I mean, I'm going to be at some of the classes because there's people that do some things better than I do, and I want to know how they do it. So I'm going to be in there. We're also going to do a lot of, fine leather work. We make bags here. We make a lot of accessories, wallets. We make a lot of belts, a lot of, fine leather. We use a lot of exotics. So we're going to have a lot of introductory courses, and that somebody that maybe has made a wallet or something doesn't know how to hand stitch, for example, wants to learn to hand stitch like Hermes or some of the other fine makers do. Intermediate courses like, a Birkin bag, maybe we'll reproduce that. You can learn a lot from those steps. We'll probably have for people that can travel or are local, like a 12-week course. So you start at this level that nothing, and each project you work on teaches you something new, and you'll progress through the stages of wherever you want to go, for example. So that's my vision. And if you're an instructor, if you've taught, or you're very good at what you do and you're interested in teaching a class, let me know what that class is. And let's talk about it. And when we get the schedule together, we'll put you on it and advertise it, and have you come out. We'll have fun.
That sounds so awesome. Is there any advice or encouragement that you have for folks who are interested in pursuing boot making, or leather work, but just haven't, I don't know, maybe gotten into it or gotten over the barriers of entry? Do you have any advice for them, and maybe to attend your school?
Well, barriers to entry, I think that's mostly psychological, because it's not expensive to get in this business. I mean, a used sewing machine's cheap. Most everything else is hand tools that you can get on eBay. I'm still using pretty much the same tools I used way back then. Of course, you can buy better and better machines. I have. But to get started and get in and get with it, see if you're going to like it, it's not expensive. Use last are not expensive. Advice. It's never been easier to learn. I mean, you can go on YouTube right now. There's all kinds of people making things. And if you watch them, you will learn. Now, the problem is a lot of people, they don't learn like that. They need to have an instructor show them in 3D. They need to, the person next to you is doing something. Maybe they're holding their tool different than you, and you say, "Oh, that's easier for me. I'm going to try that." Maybe they have a little more experience, even though they're in the same class, and they look over at you and say, "If you do this, it'll be easier for you." Being able to ask, literally hundreds of questions that you can't do on a Zoom call, and you can't do, over a video, for example. So a lot of people can learn like that. I'm one of them. I learned to engrave silver watching a guy in France. I didn't even know what he was saying, but I am fortunate. But a lot of people can't, and it's not just that. It's the relationships you build with the instructor when he goes back to Texas or Massachusetts or Italy or wherever, that you can talk to him now, and he's going to want to talk to you. The friendships you'll meet from other bootmakers. Really critical to build those relationships. So if you're listening and you're really interested, week after this, October 1st, Bootmakers Roundup in Wichita Falls, Texas. Go to it. Hang out. Talk to bootmakers. All the leather vendors there, the last makers, the tool makers. There's usually several cocktail hours and lots of bootmakers from all over. They could be a little standoffish at first. It's just because they're shy, some of them. But most of them are good guys. If you buy them a drink or two, they'll follow you around all night. There are some saddle makers there, but they're okay. I'm just kidding. They're but go down and hang out and talk to people and become friends so you can call them up and meet a vendor. American Tanning, Mark Staten, Loy Cuellar. Man, I mean, I'm going to leave somebody out, I'm sure, but there's so many people I've been doing business with for 30 years. They'll offer you advice. And so the first chance you get to go to something like that, do it. I'm going to be down there. I'm going to be at the Marriott. I think a lot of people hang out there because they have a good bar. And hang out with us. Let's talk.
Love it. Great advice. Thank you for that. You mentioned a little bit earlier about engraving silver, and that's another part of your business is making custom buckles too. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got into that?
Yeah. So, making boots, people will ask you, can make a matching belt, gray alligator or something like that. They're not going to find it somewhere, so they want a belt. And it's an add-on, right? So you make more money on it. And the problem is, at the time, I really couldn't afford to put out a lot of money for buckles, and most buckle makers, good ones, want an initial few $1,000 order. So I really didn't have that kind of money. But my brother is a silversmith, and he introduced me to silversmithing way back in my early 20s, and I did it for a little while, and really wasn't interested. I didn't know very much, but I thought, well, I'll start trying to make some of my own buckles, which I did. And your skill level, again, I go on YouTube and watch silversmiths, learned a lot, bought a tool or so when I could afford it. Then bought some engraving tools as time went on.
Is that a big part of your business?
Not really. I do, mostly it'll be gold. We do 18 karat, 14 karat gold. I'll engrave those. But it's enough. I'll put it like that, as much as I want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do a wide variety of it. I don't do a lot of Western scroll work because there's a lot of people that are really good at that. So I don't do a lot of that. Um, I cut turquoise though and stones to do inlay on buckles and things. That was just another add-on thing that I picked up along the way. Casting silver is another thing. You just kind of one thing kind of lit. I also wanted to make my own hardware for my bags and things because it's better now. There's a lot of really great hardware aftermarket, but at the time, 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't find a lot of good aftermarket hardware. And now I can pretty much anything I can design, I can make in gold and silver or, watch band buckles, for example. So it's grown. It's a big part of our business now. But I also have Bolin buckles, Clint Orms, Doug Magnus, David Deere. But it's I was curious about it, and that's the other thing you need to do. Yeah, make boots, focus on boots. But if you have a good customer that's willing to pay you, learn how to do something else. It'll help you pay the rent. I mean, don't do something that you don't want to do. But all leather work is going to help you be a better bootmaker and a better business person, and I would start with belts because everybody's going to want them. And, just pick up one thing at a time. That's what I've done.
That's great advice. That's great advice. And it seems like sometimes it doesn't even need to be directly, a tangent from boots. It could be something completely different too, that you could find is a Venn diagram of two niches, and that gets you into a whole different customer base sometimes.
Well, you're right. The other thing we haven't talked about is the other thing you really need to focus on every day is your business side. And you've got to develop skills that I really wasn't interested in at the time. But I accepted it as a challenge, and it became fun and interesting to me. How do you find customers with the least amount of money, the right customers, and so on. So I spend I'm usually up early in the morning, like a lot of people. I'm up about 4 o'clock in the morning. First 2 hours of the day, I'm thinking about marketing, the business, and creative designs. I'm looking at stats. How many people came to the website yesterday? Where did they come from? What did they look at? Look at the website. Do we have great photos? Could we have better photos? Do we need to rebuild it? And it's like every day, a couple hours. That really adds up. At the end of the year, you've got 600 hours. You probably have a brand new website that you didn't have to start with. Learn those skills. Don't pay anybody up front to do it. Learn it. It's never been easier to build a website. Build one, learn it. Then if you get so busy, you can hire somebody, at least you'll know if they're doing it right. When they quit, it goes down or whatever, you know how to fix it. You need to learn it all. And it'll be fun because you'll see something that you did the day before, and all of a sudden you've made money from it, from your idea, from your creative thought, which is, there again, there's the magic. You had an idea and you turned it into something you could go buy something with.
Exactly.
That part can be fun. Don't resist it. Don't trust somebody else to do it at first. Learn how to do it.
Love it. That's such a good piece of advice. Well, I think we're pretty much good on my questions. I got a few more here in a lightning round, and then we can wrap things up. You've been very kind with giving me your time today, so I appreciate that. Let's get into one final lightning round from some of the questions that we have in the live chat. Root Beer Fan 6 asks, do you have a holy grail leather?
About 80% of what I do and everything I make is alligator. I love it. It's challenging. It's very expensive, so it's nerve-wracking if you cut something wrong. but it's beautiful. You can guarantee it forever. By the way, that's what I do. Everything I make, I guarantee for as long as you own it. So I want to use leathers that are great like that. There's not that, you know, the bad leather and the great leather, you know, super great calf may be $20 a foot. Not so good calf is like $8 or $7 a foot, $5 a foot. Not that, always buy the best. But to me, the holy grail is alligator. And we have great vendors here, probably the best in the world. American Tanning, Mark Staten, Jay Hardicke, those guys, we're so fortunate to have them. They're fantastic. They'll answer any questions you want.
Yes, if anybody doesn't follow American Tanning on Instagram, you have to, because they are so active on social media, and it's so cool to see some of the behind the scenes when they're tanning those alligator hides.
And they'll be down at the boot roundup week after next.
Awesome. So you got to go, everybody who's interested. One more question here. I think it refers back to your repair days. Was there any brand specifically that was hardest to work with when you were doing boot repair?
Well, the cheap brands are always the hardest because you take them apart and you can't get them back together. So the cheapest ones are crap. Rubber soles. But I can tell you this, I learned a lot from what I considered was a really good bootmaker at the time. Now, this is the early 90s. They've changed a lot, but Lucchese at the time made quite a bit different boot back in the early 90s. And taking those apart and putting them back together, I picked up a lot of good details at the time. Actually back then, most of the bootmakers made a pretty darn good boot back then. Justin, Tony Lama, a lot different than it is now. But you can learn a lot by taking a good, you know, Alan Edmonds shoes, for example, John Loeb, you know, Ferragamo. You can learn a lot from people that have been doing it through repair. So, you know, I'm not putting down repair at all. I think early in your career, it's a great business, and you can learn a lot by taking things apart.
So you don't like the rubber soles? Is that what you're saying? Rubber sole boots with rubber soles?
No, I'm not saying that. Vibram rubber sole, that's a good sole. A lot of people need them for what they're doing. But a lot of the heels, for example, are plastic and rubber.
Yeah. Yeah.
You take off the old and you start sanding it down and it's hollow.
Yep.
What do you fill it in with? You know, plastic welts or rubber welts around. You know, you're going to have to replace it. Then you pull it off and you find out the insole is just a piece of fabric that goes around that you're going to re-sew it into. It just starts falling apart in your hand. So, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of the product today is like that. So, you know, you're not going to learn much other than I shouldn't have took this job.
That's funny. We got a question here from Noble7. How can you tell if a boot is hand lasted? Most descriptions don't say if a boot is or isn't on these boots that you were just talking about.
Well, most of your boots in that $150, $200 price range are not Old Gringo, for example. They're not hand lasted because there's too many man hours. They can't sell an entry level boot that's hand lasted like that. But it's not a great boot if you think it should be a custom boot, but you're not paying for that. So they're not bad boots. You're getting the value that you paid for. For example, Old Gringo has great designers, beautiful boots. They use inexpensive materials, but they put a lot of money in design. That's where they put their money. And they're an entry-level boot, and people love them. I sell them here. But people know what they're buying. You're not getting over on them. They know exactly what they're getting, and that's fine. They'd rather have, especially women, would rather have 10 pair of old Gringo than one pair of custom boots, because that's how they don't like to wear the same thing all the time. So, you're not going to hear me say this is crap and this is crap, unless you say I paid $5,000 for it and it's a $200 boot. Then I'm going to say it's crap. But it's entry level, and you have to start somewhere. Not everybody can afford, a really, custom pair of boots. And all these makers have their place, including boot makers that are just starting custom businesses. They can't get, thousands of dollars because they're just not that level. Doesn't mean you're not going to get your money's worth for that $1,000 custom boot or $1,200 boot. It's all relative. We're talking about value, not expense.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. It's all perspective.
Yeah,
that's great. And also, Noble, one thing that I've noticed too is that some of the boot companies' Instagrams, and it just comes back to social media and content for me, they'll show you how they make the boots. And on Double H's Instagram, on Double H, you can go there and you can see them put the boot into the machine last, and they actually brag about it. So it's just, you can find out one way or another too. All right. Thank you so much, John.
You bet.
What were you going to say? I didn't want to interrupt your last thoughts there.
Most of what we consider really great shoes from Europe are machine lasted and machine welted. And we're talking a lot of John Loeb, for example, Greens. There's a lot of really great shoes. Allen Edmond. If you're in repair and you've taken apart Allen Edmonds, it's a great value, $400 shoe. It's machine lasted, So got to compare value, right? So
great. Thank you so much for that. I think we're pretty much good here on time. Is there anything that you want to leave everybody with before we sign off?
Yeah, like I said, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the great questions. Everybody that's thinking about getting this business, there's not anybody that can't do this. If you have the want to, you'll get the how to. So go for it, man. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, John. Wishing you the best, and I can't wait to see more from your school.
Thank you. See you later.
All right, we are off.